Welcome to Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Ben Mendez. Today we're going to talk about two individuals in our community that have done some great things. We had Baldomar Rodriguez. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
And we have Cesar Espinosa. And before we talk to them, we want to talk about current events. And there's one issue that has been talked about throughout the country, and that's immigration. And so let's jump right into immigration. Now, Cesar, I know you're an activist in our community regarding immigration.
Yes, sir.
And you know there's a lot of things going on at the border right now. And we have had many politicians make their run to the border to talk and see for themselves what's going on in the community. Now, I will tell you, I think a lot of it is political rhetoric. I think it's showmanship, showboat, if you will. There's a lot of issues that are not being addressed, and Congress continues to have problems. We can't get the Republicans and the Democrats to agree to policies that affect our people. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, obviously, it's really sad to see that they're using an issue that's very important to many of us, to just promote themselves and promote their agenda. Just today, we heard that Governor Perry is going to propose to move the National Guard into the border, which is going to create a ton of more issues. It's not going to help anything. I talked to a reporter this morning who talked to one of the border agents, and he said that there's two big differences. When Bush, by federal mandate, sent in the National Guard to guard the border, there was not so much red tape. But in 2010, the first time that Governor Perry did it, it actually took away from the Border Patrol's duties because they had to monitor what the National Guard was doing. So we expect that if Governor Perry acts on his own without a federal mandate, we expect for it to be the same thing. And instead of making things better, it's going to make things a lot worse. So there's a lot going on. We have the unaccompanied minors coming in, which we all know is a humanitarian crisis. And we also still have to figure out what are we going to do with the more than 11 million undocumented people who are now here in the United States.
So let's talk about this critical issue. You know, we have about 52,000 youth, if not more, that have passed the borders and are in the states as we speak. And we have a humanitarian crisis because of that issue. Now, what are your thoughts as far as what Obama is trying to do?
Well, there's two things. Number one, the 52,000 number is actually a lot larger than that. Let me explain why. There's two categories of these unaccompanied children. The Mexican children's and the OTM, which is other than Mexican. So the only ones that are tracking that they're keeping here in the U.S. are the OTM children. The Mexican children, even if they're traveling without parents, if they're traveling without a relative, they get tossed right across the border or get sent to other parts further away from where they cross to kind of prevent them from crossing again. And they don't care if they don't have parents or relatives or there's nobody to greet them, they're just tossing them across the border. They process them, they take biometric information, but that's it. They don't really count them in the number of children that they're currently housing here in the United States.
But we don't have any numbers whatsoever.
And we don't have any numbers because they're not tracking those children. So the crisis is actually a lot bigger than what we know. But like I said, there's these two categories. And the problem now stands with what are we going to do with these children? What's going to happen to these children? Many of these children, a United Nations report said that 68% of the children are either running away from physical abuse or sexual abuse back in their home country. So what has been said in the media by some people that these children are coming to get a DREAM Act or something is totally misconstrued. Now, we are very taken aback, and we're actually very disappointed with the way the Obama administration has been dealing with this issue, because instead of figuring out a way to grant these children some sort of political asylum status, they've actually asked for emergency funds to process them and deport them a lot quicker without really looking into why these children are coming. And it must be said that many of these children are coming because of policies that have been put in place by the United States through many decades that has caused a lot of people to migrate. And of course, you know, the drug industry has grown here in the United States in terms of consumers, and so that creates more demand and things like that. So there's this issue is not clean cut. It's not you can choose a side. There is a lot of gray areas, and I really encourage folks to really look into the issue, not just make up their mind whether they're for or against it, but really make an educated decision because it is a really complex issue that we're dealing with.
So you had mentioned there were some policies in place that have led to this. Give me an example of some of those policies.
Many of the free trade agreements have increased migration into the United States. With NAFTA and with Mexico, and with CAFTA with Central America, it's increased the fact that people still get paid. Like, for example, in El Salvador, people still get paid in colones, which is what it is, but then they have to trade in their colones for dollars, and the colon is so depreciated that they're trying to live a life on an American life, but on a salary from El Salvador, because now everything is sold in dollars over there. So it's created a lot of issues to where people can control. Crime has gone skyrocketed, and it's not only the U.S.'s fault. It's also the fault of the countries in Central America and Mexico who are not being able to secure their citizens. Many people have, like I said, have traveled because they no longer feel secure. One of the stories that really struck me, which is the reason why we started getting involved, was the story of a young 14-year-old girl who mom got killed, got murdered in Honduras. Dad was a taxi driver, got murdered at gunpoint because he got robbed. And she was living with grandma, and one of the gangsters comes over on a Wednesday, and she says, "You either give me $1,500 by Saturday, or you're going to be one of my wives." And she doesn't have $1,500, and she doesn't want to be the wife of this gang member. So she was told this on Wednesday. By Thursday, she's on the road trying to find out a safe place. She can't stay in Mexico because even immigration into Mexico is really difficult, and they get exploited there also. So she has to continue up north.
So, and these people are coming to you direct, or how are you getting a hold of these?
We're hearing it from different agencies. Many of the parents are coming to us for some sort of guidance. We are being overwhelmed with calls of people trying to figure out what we're going to do. But on a positive note, we have started to collect donations to give to shelters and to donate to different people. And the community response has been amazing. The outpouring of support that we have gotten from community members has been across the board. And it's not only Latinos, it's people who really are worried about this issue and who want to contribute in some sort of way.
For the viewers out there that would like to participate in this discussion, on the bottom of your screen, you'll see a phone number. Call in and you can have any questions you want answered by these two guests. And if also you would like to participate in a different discussion, we'd be happy to take your call as well. Because we talk about all kinds of issues here, regardless of what it is. And you have someone in your family that just recently crossed over. And you were telling me about this before the show. Mm-hmm. So this person is how old?
This person, I think, is like 43, 44 years old. He's coming directly from Mexico. And it all happened right after we started hearing the news about all these children coming. And so it took him about 8 days to get after he crossed the border into Brownsville, and then to make it here. And it is a little bit different. Cesar, I hear you saying, the different motives of why people came over here. The children, more specifically, are coming over here. And what my cousin told me was, because he is my cousin, and I'm not embarrassed to say this, but he's in that predicament. He needs to do what he needs to do to take care of his family this year. But when he came over, the very first thing, you always access a coyote, right? And then the coyote sends you to a warehouse, and warehouses.
For the viewers out there, what is a coyote?
A coyote is it's a gentleman or a lady who takes money in order to get you into this country, not just to cross the border, but actually get you to the city where you need to be. That's
the destination.
He's basically a human trafficker. Mm-hmm. Okay, he does it for money. And so what happened to him in his journey is when he got to the actual border, there's a lot of warehouses that have kind of propped up, and in these warehouses there's a lot of individuals, a lot of children, a lot of families. And one of the things that he told me is that in speaking with the mothers and children that are there, that there was this huge propaganda going on in Latin, in like Guatemala and Salvador, a lot of these Latin American countries, where they were going to be giving amnesty and asylum to these children. And that's, to me, that, it's like, wow, who started this? Why did they start this? All of a sudden there's kids coming, they're getting the wrong information. They're coming to this country and they're creating obviously a problem because they were misinformed and they were getting the wrong message. But all over they've been saying, no, that's what they've been telling them through literature, through media, and of course, who knows if this is really true, but this is what my cousin said. Now, obviously, coming into this country, the children, he was able to, let me just tell you very quickly, he came in with a group of 40. And it's very disheartening to say this, but out of the 40 people, only 2 actually made it. Because
Made it to the United States.
Made it to the United States and made it into the United States and into the final destination.
And what happened to the rest?
The rest, they were corralled, obviously, by immigration. Some of them that actually escaped the very first influx of border patrols that caught them as soon as they crossed over. Some of them made it into the next round, which is further, like in the areas of Alfurias, and then those that actually, I think it was like 10 of them that actually made it to the final van that actually was after the checkpoint. And that's after traveling for like about 4 or 5 days through I call it the desert, the shrubs,
weeds.
The weeds, yeah. Then they actually made it to the coyote, the second coyote, which they had the van. And once they got into the van, they were already past Victoria, on their way to, I guess the first destination was Houston, where the border patrols caught them, and they literally, went and dove into the plantations, the corn weeds and everything, and then they got out, and out of those, only 2 escaped, and he was one of them. And so it's
Sounds like a movie.
It sounds like a movie, and
and
it's crazy because out of a group of 40 people, and everybody's paying like anywhere from $3,500 to $7,500 to do this. There's only a small percentage that actually makes it here. 2 people, an older gentleman and a woman that he said he was about 35 years old, they literally said, "Leave me here." And literally they just collapsed and they couldn't go any further. And we don't really know. He says that he doesn't know whether or not the Border Patrol ever found them or not, but because they, wherever they stop, wherever they can't walk anymore, there's no water, there's no food, they just lay there because they physically cannot mobilize anymore. And so the only thing that they actually hope or pray is that, Border Patrol comes and picks them up, because if not, they become part of those skeletal remains that you've seen in commercials, you've seen in PSAs. And by the way, he did say that he saw a lot of them along the way.
A lot of dead bodies.
A lot of dead bodies, a lot of skeletal remains, a lot of clothing. It's very difficult. And as you know, Ben, I'm a filmmaker, and so I ask these questions because, I try to transfer what is happening in reality into a visual medium so that people could find out that this is happening all over the place, more importantly now.
And we are going to talk about your movie, by the way, in a few minutes. But let's consider this policy that Obama has, that he's going to have more INS patrols on the border. And you had mentioned that if National Guard were to be there as well, it's going to create chaos because you're going to have 2 entities involved. You're going to have the National Guard and, of course, the Border Patrol, right? So the reality is Obama's policy going to help any?
Well, there's been more resources allocated to Border Patrol agents, and we've seen that. And we've seen that ever since 2000 when Bush signed the Border Protection Act. Mm-hmm. And it's actually, I always tell the story because it's a real true story. 2 weeks after he signs the Border Protection Act, 2 companies get indicted for hiring undocumented immigrants to build the wall, which is the nature of the United States, to put things in perspective and then go around your own law and hire undocumented people to do the work. And we see now that if Governor Perry puts in the National Guard, it's actually going to create more chaos than good. Like I said, when they are not there by federal mandate, Border Patrol has to follow them to make sure that they follow procedure. Because the law says that once somebody touches foot here in the U.S., you have to process them, you have to fingerprint them. And so the question is the National Guard ready to take on those to process people the way they should and the way the procedures are already set in place? It also has a hefty price tag on it. We're talking about $12 million a month to put National Guard on the border, and that's going to come out of taxpayer money. And Governor Perry has said there's no money to fund public education, there's no money to fund this, there's no money to fund, but in order for him to move his political agenda forward, he's willing to fork over $12 million a month.
Well, he's running for president. What do you expect?
We don't expect too much.
Yeah. So if you consider all the Border Patrol agents that will be on the border, and then you have this influx or wave of people coming in, you assume that you're going to catch more people, right? But the reality is some of these people are not afraid to be caught. And some of these people will walk right into the Border Patrol because they want to go through that process, because they know that the U.S. is not going to send them right back. And they're going to be contained, and then perhaps they're going to be let go for a hearing to come back later, right? So if they're let go, let's say for 6 months, and then they're here in the States, regardless if we want them or not, they're here in the States, and most of them don't even show up to their court hearing, right? So what kind of policy is that? I mean, it's okay to be caught. We're going to let you go 6 months. Be back here on whatever day, because the judge is going to make a decision, and what happens,
It really is the fallout of our broken immigration system, that we have an outdated system that needs to be updated. Because if there wasn't a need for people to work here, there wouldn't be so many people coming and finding jobs here. I mean, we talk about during the economic downturn, actually net migration during sometime during the fallout, the migration actually went to zero, because there was as many people leaving as many people coming in. But now with our growth in our economy, our regrowth in some of our industries, including Houston, because Houston is expanding at a massive rate, we have the need for more workers to come in, and these companies are hiring them. Now with the children, yes, there has been a propaganda almost kind of campaign going on in Central and South America, telling people if you get there, you get papers, but that it's still to be determined. But there's a lot of leads that say that it's organized crimes. It's just trying to create that chaos so they can get paid $6,000 to $8,000 to bring people in. And we when we talk to parents, and parents are like, I want to bring my kid over, we tell them not to. Like Valdemar said earlier, the trip itself is extremely dangerous. And if you don't know if you're giving your child to a murderer, a rapist, a pedophile, and you don't know what danger you're going to put them in. So we don't condone that at all. And we tell parents, do not put your children in danger by sending them, because not only are the people bad, but then the conditions themselves are really bad. The way the border is set up now, it forces people to cross through more desolate areas, through rougher areas, in an attempt to deter them from crossing. But people are continuing to cross, and the deaths are increasing at the border.
Well, we're going to continue this discussion. We're going to take a little break. I want to invite our co-host Javier Perez to the table, because I know he has something to say about this issue. And so we look forward to more discussion. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Oh, do you think the issue at hand? Welcome back to Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Ben Mendez, and now we have our other host, Mr. Javier Perez, joining us.
Glad to be here, everybody.
And thank the traffic of Houston, okay? This is live TV, and sometimes we don't make it on time. For Javier, he doesn't make it all the time, but that's another story.
And I'm only 5 minutes away.
So we're going to talk more about this immigration issue with Mr. Cesar Espinosa and our guest, Valdemar Rodriguez. Now, one of the things that really interests me is the money. When you follow the money, you find out who's really making the money, okay? Now, obviously, the coyotes, the cartels that are involved in this are making a lot of money. But let's talk about our side. The people that are making money on the U.S. side is obviously the correctional facilities, right?
Yes.
Right? They're the main ones. But then you have all the attorneys.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, and all the other entities that say that they can help you. Now, some of them claim to be nonprofits, so you got to be aware of the people that are trying to help you. They might not be nonprofit. Now, Cesar, you know better than I do. How much are we making, or I should say the federal government or the state government or any governmental entity paying contractors per day per individual?
Well, there's a big, all detention centers are privately owned. All immigration detention centers are privately owned. They're run by a private corporation called the Corrections Corporations of America, or CCA. You can actually buy stock in CCA in the New York Stock Exchange. And it's a publicly traded company that the federal government pays them $132 per head. And this is the group, they're part of a bigger group called the GEO Group, which has a PAC, which puts anti-immigrant candidates on the ballot in the hopes of passing anti-immigrant laws so that they can detain more people and they can continue to make more money. So, I mean, we can really teach almost a semester-long class on following the money trail, finding out who's getting paid, who's getting campaign contributions from the GEO Group and CCA, and the money is there, and they're making it a multi-billion-dollar corporation that they're making. We talked, one of the saddest moments in my organizing life was when we went into the detention center and we talked to one of the chaplains and we asked them, well, what capacity are you at? And the chaplain turns to us and he says, well, I'm not sure, but the only thing I'm sure is that business is good. And so probably this guy had own stock in CCA, and so it's in his interest also to keep people there for as long. And the detentions have gone from back in the early 2000s. Detentions were the average time of detention was about a week or so. Right now we're talking 6 months plus. Some people are in detention for years on end until they figure out their immigration situation. Not only that, there's also a lot of issues when I go deposit. If I were to get detained and you were my relative and you go deposit me money, but then they transfer me, the family never sees that money again. So that money that you deposited does not transfer over to the next facility. The facility keeps that money, and in order to get that money back, it's almost impossible.
That's crazy.
Well, you know, Cesar, so let me make sure I got this straight. So you got CCA that is backing legislation to, now I guess it has to be the right kind of legislation. So if it was a legislation where they stop them at the border and send them back immediately, they'd be totally against that.
They would be totally against that. They would want a system that houses them here. And
sort of what we got now.
Yeah.
From the Bush administration, when the new policy started, when we had to hold on to these people for months at a time, that was probably the gold mine of these people.
Yes, and then they're the people behind the SB 1070 in Arizona. They're the people behind the national push in 2006 for the Sensenbrenner bill. And so these people are, like I said, are trying to make it so more people get detained so that they can keep making more money.
Put the camera on me, Pat. Do you hear that, Tea Party? Do you hear what this man is saying? They're the ones that are causing this. Not the immigration, it's the immigration policy that was started by the Bush administration. Is that right? Do I got that? Okay. Come on, Tea Party, let's do some more. Let's make some more money for the CCA. Let's go.
This is something I like about Javier. When he is right, he's right, and he wants people to know it. But
I try that with my wife. It doesn't happen very often.
But Cesar, let's continue this discussion. You know better than I do that there's a lot of crooked attorneys out there.
Just serious.
And I know you run into them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are you telling our folks to be aware of?
People need to be aware of there's several things that people need to be aware. Number one is lo que sale barato sale caro. What's too good to be true probably is a lot of people go to notaries to do immigration paperwork or things like that, and because they have the misconception that notaries in our countries are notarios, which you have to be an attorney before they make you a notario in our countries. And so a lot of people have that misconception. But number two is always be an informed consumer. Just like when you're buying a car, or just like when you're buying a lavadora or anything, you check prices, you get different opinions for things. So we strongly suggest that people go to one attorney, but then go to the next one, and don't just go because your tia went to that attorney and he hooked her up. And don't just believe everything they tell you, because not all attorneys are in the best interest. There's a ton of good attorneys out there, but there's also a ton of people that are just willing to take your money. And we see that all the time with people applying for deferred action who clearly do not qualify. But they've gone to another attorney, and that attorney says, "Well, just pay me, and we'll fix it up for you." And that's not true. And in many of these cases, two things can happen. The least worst thing that can happen to you is that you get denied from some sort of immigration benefit. But the worst thing that can happen to you is you can actually fall into deportation proceedings, and that's definitely what you don't want to do.
Let me ask you this, Valde. So these people that are detained at the border, that are given the ticket, say you have to come to court, and a couple months down the line, if they do come to court, and if they say no, you're here illegally, we're going to have to deport you. So right then and there, they are held.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's probably what's wrong with the system, Ben. I mean, who would go back and shoot themselves in the foot? I mean, once they're here, there's I'm going to stay here as long as I can till they catch me. It's either that or deal with the gangs back in their homeland. I mean, it's a matter of survival. These poor people are just trying to survive. I mean, I don't blame them for not going to court. There's so many things, so many issues that have to be reconciled before we start sending these people back. I mean, how many of us would really turn their back on a child at your front door? If a child came to your front door and asked for help, how many of us really just shut the door on them? I think that's what we need to ask ourselves. That's the America I was born into, where people wouldn't do that, and I think that's what we need to get back to. I mean, where does our compassion end at the border? Is that where our compassion ends, or is that where our compassion should begin? I mean, we need to do something, and I don't have the answer, but I know what we have now it just isn't. It isn't. I know that isn't the answer. So it's something that we really need to work on.
I wanted to follow up on what Cesar was talking about with the notarios and the attorneys. In the research that I did in producing this last project that I did, I discovered that a lot of families, a lot of people that actually go to either an attorney or a notario, they do the very first payment. And then what happens is that they get caught into that, hey, I've already made, $1,500, $2,000. And whether they're going to see something happen or not, they ya los tienen aganchados. They already have the hook. And so they don't want to lose that. They don't want to lose that. And so when they ask, I need another 1,500 or I need another 2,000, they're hopeful and they don't want to lose that without being redundant. They don't want to lose that hope. So they continue to finance that hope, and it never happens. So that's one thing that my advice to people that find themselves in that predicament where they can't really do any more than or they see that it's that attorney or that notary public is not moving, is to cut their losses. Cut their losses and lose the 2,000, 3,000, and then just stop there, because all they're going to end up doing is they're going to be putting more money into it, or like you said, you're going to be cut in and be put into those detention centers, and then more money is going to have to be put out to be able to get you out or to sustain you while you're inside those facilities. And that money that you're talking about, with that if you go into one, whether they send you first initially to Harris County and then they send you to the detention center, if you do put in that money, we did that with our cousin. He never saw it. It never went to him. He never benefited from that, to be able to use for his daily whatever food or whatever that he need, things that needed to be provided for him while he was in there. And that's absolutely true. You get lost, and who keeps that money?
We're in the wrong business.
And the thing is that, I mean, and going back to follow up on your point, and I mean, so we hear about immigration, we hear about detention and stuff like that, but there's all these other underlying issues. And with the money thing, that when they deposit money in your account at the detention center, okay, so now you have your money, but then the prices of items in there, a ramen noodle soup is like $4. A Twinkie is like $2.50.
Well, they're supposed to be 15 cents.
Yeah, and so they're making, so not only do they have you, and they're already making money from the federal government off of you, but then you're going in there and you have to buy things. I mean, and it's either you have the choice to buy those commodities, or you just eat whatever food, whatever processed food that they give you. And healthcare, I mean, there's pregnant women in detention as we speak. There's children being born in detention centers. I mean, and these are all the things that we have to see, which is why I say the immigration issue is so complex. And to touch on Javier's point, we were just at a rally on Friday, and we were chanting, and one of the things that we were chanting is we care about children. Yes, we do. We care about children. How about you? And a woman yells right back at us, and she says, I care about my children. And that's it. And it's just really, it's really hurtful to see people feel that way, because I know that we're better. I'm part of the immigration system. I'm an immigrant, and I love this country, and this country has given me so much. And I know that the heart of America is in a good place. We just have to continue to work on it.
You know what amazed me was when I saw those people protesting the buses that were transporting some of these folks to different detention centers, like in California, North Texas, et cetera, et cetera. Now, some of these folks have no clue of what they're ranting about, you know. So they're out there protesting and yelling and screaming. But the reality is they don't know the facts about what's going on. They don't know the personalities that are involved either. So they have no clue whatsoever. So what do you say to these people when you talk to them?
Well, well, number one, we would like for them to get educated on the issue. Know that, like I said earlier in the show, this is not a clean-cut issue. It's not you're either on this side or on that side. It's a very extremely complex issue that has a lot of factors that are causing it. One of the things that threw me off this week was when I saw one of these guys running for Congress in Arizona. They start radioing in, there's a bus coming in, there's a bus coming in. Everybody's so panicked and so uptight about this that everybody runs to the bus, and it was a bus full of YMCA kids going to a camp.
Saw that.
And and then there was, and then, you know, it's bad but people are so crazy about it.
Kids in their city limits, you know. I don't want my kids in my city limits. But no, that was, you know, that
They're
was
so quick
that was
to act without knowing
Yeah.
the facts. That's
And then I mean, like I said, we had a rally on last Friday at one of the things that because they were saying, oh, we're not, because we were telling them, why do you continue to choose to target the Mexican people or the Mexican consulate? And they're saying, well, this is because there's so many of you guys, and then this is the biggest consulate. And we were telling them, I don't know if you guys knew, but Houston has the most consulates outside of D.C. Houston has consulates from everywhere, and we have the largest Vietnamese community living outside of Vietnam, a huge Nigerian community, many of them which are undocumented, but yet they continue to go for the Mexican people. So so they telling us we don't have nothing against y'all, we just hate your people, but you do have something against Mexicans in particular because you continue to target. And one of the things that that was so powerful about our, number one is we outnumbered them. They brought about 40 people. We had about 150 people at one point because we wanted to show them that we're united on this and we're not going to stand for hate. And number two is that they kept telling us stuff. They were like, well, go back to Mexico. And we had people from all over the world. We had Asian people. We had people from Honduras. We had people from Peru. We had people from all walks of life. We were very honored to have some servicemen join us and said, well, you know, I fought for everybody's freedom, not just yours. And so it was really powerful to them. And at the end, they ended up leaving because they just couldn't stand us.
Ben, I tell you, there's so much going on. I tell you one thing right now, Ben. That's great. That's great, brother. But I tell you, I ain't getting spit on. That's where it ends. Anybody spits on me, oh, it is on like Donkey Kong. I mean, that is not going to happen. I mean, my heart goes out to you, Cesar, because I know you have to take a lot, especially being in a position of leadership. But oh my gosh, how much are we supposed to take?
Well, I mean, we follow Martin Luther King's teaching of peaceful resistance,
nonviolence, yeah.
action, and I know you're talking about Lupillo Rivera, who got spit on in California, and I'm right with you, Javier. I'm not sure
Boy,
if
that
I
would
could take
really...
that, but it just shows like I said, that we're willing to fight hate with nonviolent, peaceful action. I mean, and it's sometimes it's scary. Some of these people are now carrying long guns, and it's legal in the state of Texas to do so. But we're just hoping that everything. We always try to follow the law and keep everything as peaceful as possible. Always let HPD know, but even with HPD, we had some issues. They were bothering our side and not telling them anything, but I'm a rebel, so I went in and I yelled at them and told them that they needed to be equal.
Well, don't send anybody from the east side or the north side. They'll be packing.
I have a comment. I don't know if you guys saw this on YouTube, but there's a video, and I don't know exactly where this protest was happening, but there was a Native American, an Indian, and he was with a stroller with his young child and baby in there, and there were all these Anglo Americans, and they were protesting the immigrants, and it said, everybody go back to your country. We don't want any undocumented and blah blah blah, and he actually stopped. It was just him as a Native American. He got out. It's like, you know what? If we had these signs when you guys first arrived, we wouldn't even have this problem. And so he started talking. He goes, you guys need to go because you actually didn't come here with documents. You are actually the undocumented. And I kid you not, I never saw how one person could clear the vicinity like this man did. All of a sudden, everybody just started going because they were basically telling them the truth. He was basically telling them the truth that they're the ones that are actually immigrants, and they are the ones that are actually undocumented because when they got here into this country, they didn't have any papers. They didn't, and it's so funny. Maybe we should invite our Native Americans to come to our rallies, and maybe they'll be able to speak more of the truth and tell them exactly.
Aren't you Indian?
Well, I think I have some Indian blood in me. That's right.
I think we all are Indian.
We all have a little bit of that. You're absolutely right.
And that is actually a very good point that you bring up, because one of the questions. So our demonstration last Friday was more about education. So we had different talking points that we wanted to, and really just give out facts about immigration and where everybody comes from. And one of the questions that we kept asking them is, it's where are your ancestors from? Mm-hmm. And whenever we would ask that question, they would all turn around and ignore us because they didn't want it. And then we had this one gentleman said that he migrated from Alabama. And I just didn't get what that meant. I was like, okay, you moved here from Alabama, but where are your ancestors from? And then they're so, what really gets to me is when they say that we should be a monolingual culture. And I think that in my opinion, the more languages you speak, the more prepared you are to face life, and the more beautiful the conversation becomes if you can speak several languages. And in other parts of the world, there's people that speak 5 or 6 different languages by the time they're teenagers. And why can't we be that culture here that does things? Puts things into perspective. And so we have to keep teaching, and we have to keep showing people that our community is beautiful and that we're ready to respond. And once again, we saw one of the things we were telling them as well is that they tell us they speak English, but yet they had many signs that were misspelled, and that continues to be one of the things that's happened. They had a sign that poverty was spelled. It was not poverty. It was poverty. They had all sorts of things. They tried to spell some signs in Spanish. And they were all messed up, and so it was just really interesting.
I think we have a lot of that in all of our cultures. I think the big thing is that, the majority of us are ignorant and to the truth. And I think you're absolutely right, Cesar. The minute that we start educating everybody that we are all guests in this country, we're all immigrants in this country, I think it's gonna make for a better community, because it's. And again, if we just get them to open up their hearts and their minds to listen to where we all come from, I think we'll be able to get along.
We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk to Baldomar Rodriguez. Thank you for joining us again. And we're going to talk about his movie that he produced, and I went to see it. It was a great movie, Balde. I taught you well.
I think you sure did.
I taught you well. So we'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Latino Talk TV. I'm your host, Ben Mendez. And now we're going to talk to Valdemar Rodriguez, a local film producer. And we're very proud of him, by the way. He's done some great work. Now, tell us about your last movie.
Last movie is called In Search of the American Dream. And it's actually very fitting that we can talk about this now because of what's happening in the media. And it's basically a story about a family that's torn apart due to the immigration issues that we're facing all over the country. More specifically, the immigrants or the children of the families that actually came here and actually had them here. So it's a little bit different aspect of immigration, but it's still an issue nonetheless. And we were able to release it last September, and so right now we're working to try to be able to release it in VOD and Blu-ray and DVD and iTunes and Amazon during this Hispanic Heritage Month.
Well, Valde, you know what? When did you complete this movie? It's been a couple of years, right?
It's been a couple of years, yes.
Had you any idea where at that time of the path we were headed that would lead us here today?
Absolutely not. I think I came up with the idea in 2004 during the Producers Academy, and we were actually in Tucson, Arizona, where the National Association of Latino Independent Producers brought us all together, and they said, you know what? Overnight, you got to come up with a concept of a story. And I said, okay, well, I went back and I wanted to do a story about a family. I remember reading there the early onsets of immigration and what was happening. And I said, I'm going to make this my storyline. But little did I know that 10 years down the line, this would be happening in full force, because I think it's really in full force right now. So no, I had no idea that this is the direction that we were heading.
And I understand you have a new project now that you're working on.
Yes.
Can I be in your new project?
You know what?
Can I be a star?
Actually,
only if he dresses in drag.
Actually, the new project, I'm actually doing a 180. I'm actually directing for the very first time a comedy, and it's actually an all-woman cast.
Oh,
and it's called. But we could put a wig and some dresses on you. It's Las Nuevas Tamaleras.
Wouldn't be the first time. Wouldn't be the first time, Valde.
So I hear you have a promo for us.
Yes, you know what? We're actually going to be holding auditions for the Nuevas Tamaleras on Thursday. So yeah, we haven't. We actually produced a public service announcement promo. If you guys want to run it,
If our producer's ready, we'd like to see it. Are y'all ready? All right, here we go.
Talento Bilingüe de Houston invites you to audition July 24th from 5 to 10 p.m. for its upcoming stage production of Las Nuevas Tamaleras. Meet Doña Mercedes. She's a strict, hardworking, traditional tamalera. In tamales, there's no such thing as a shortcut. Doña Juanita. She's the adorable grandmother, always lighting up the room with her smile. Sylvia. She's the educated attorney, controlling and smart. In her kitchen, it's her way or the highway. Then there's Patsy. She's the sexiest tamalera of them all. She gets all the attention everywhere she goes. All of her friends are jealous of her sexy looks. She prides herself in making the sexiest tamales. And Josie, she loves to have fun and entertain. It's put a party everywhere she goes. She loves to eat anything sweet and loves spending quality time with her best friend Lady Bear. Don't miss this opportunity to audition for Las Nuevas Tamaleras, Thursday, July 24th from 5 to 10 p.m. at Talento Bilingüe de Houston. For more information, visit tbhcenter.org or call 713-222-1213.
So auditions are this Thursday.
this Thursday.
You know what? This is great, man. Let me give a little background. If anyone who don't know, I'm also the director at Talento Bilingüe de Houston. And one of the things, I've been there probably about 18 months now, and people have always come up to me and asked me, when are you bringing back Las Nuevas Tamaleras? When are you bringing back Las Nuevas Tamaleras? And I had the good fortune of seeing this the last time it was done here back in, I think it was 2009, 2010, when this show actually sold out the Wortham Theater, the big theater at the Wortham. And it is hilarious, and it's kind of like a Christmas story, and one of the things that talking with other people in the industry, I says, the hobby does the Nutcracker, the alley always does the Christmas Carol. Well, at TBH Center, for Christmas, we're going to start doing those tamaletas because it is, and it's actually kind of a ghost story. It's kind of like Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. The two older, the matriarchs of the family, they're actually ghosts in the story. They're ghosts, and they're overseeing how the younger generation is making tamales, what they're doing, and they just got to have all kind of comments. And one of the things is the people that really want to come out and really try for the part and read for it. I think now, if I'm not mistaken, Valde is esta. Pedro Infante's daughter, Irma.
Oh, Irma Infante.
Irma Infante is probably going to do a lot of these shows, isn't she?
Absolutely. Yeah, we already reached out to her, and she, we're having her go through the audition process, to make it fair. But I think there's a strong likelihood that she will be our named actress for the project. And as you've seen in the promo, and what Javier has mentioned, the five tamaleras. It's basically the story of three modern Latinas that actually come together to host the very first tamaladas, to try to make the very first tamales. And of course, one of them is the smartest one in the group. One of them is the sexiest in the group. One of them is neither smartest, it's just not the smartest or the sexiest, but she just wants to have fun. And in getting all together, they realize that, we have no idea what the heck we're doing. And so in a moment of fun and games, they're like, let's call the spirits about it, see if someone could come down and aid us in this task. And sure enough, like all comedies and ghost stories happen, the two tamaleras from two different eras come down, and of course they oversee and try to manipulate their cooking and the ingredients, and of course that makes for very, very good comedy. It's written by Alisa Mena, which is a wonderful writer out of San Antonio, and I think they're really
She actually wrote this story when she was here at TBH, probably about 10 years ago.
Yes.
And it's a great story, and believe me, I know she does it in San Antonio. But she does it the month of December. We're going to be doing it the month of November, probably the first 3 weekends before Thanksgiving. So I think we've got about 9 shows planned, and I think it's going to be a fantastic show. And we're looking at having, if you've never seen this show, especially if you're Latino, especially if you're Mexicano. If you remember the tamaladas when your grandmother was there. You remember how the family get together and somebody always end up fighting. Pretty much the same thing, but with a lot more color to it. So we really invite. It's going to be a great show, and I tell you, we're really lucky that we were able to get Valde to do this. Valde has a degree in theater. And I think Valde has the credentials to really pull this thing off. I'm so happy that Valde's agreed to do this, and I think it's just the beginning of a lot of collaborations that TBH is going to have with Valdemar Rodriguez.
His GED's in film.
That's it. That's right.
GED in film.
You know what? You talked a little bit about the tradition and the culture of the tamaladas, and I think that, the very first, culture that, we want to think about is the Mexicanos, but there's so many different versions or variations of tamales. We have the tamale de Guatemala, de El Salvador, de Honduras. Everybody has this kind of association. And yes, when the ladies get together, no matter what Central American or Latin American country you are, you can get together, you can have the chisme, the gossip, and it's going to make for really wonderful tamales. So we really want to take this opportunity to anybody that's out there from our Houston Media Source audience. If you got the inspiration of or the aspiration, of acting in this project, we invite you from 5 to 9 at the Latino Bilingüe de Houston this coming Thursday. Just call the phone number that you saw on the screen, 713-222-1213. We'll send you a sample of the audition script sites. And, and even if you've never acted before, I think Houston has a lot of hidden talent. And I think that if you come out, I think that I'm a really okay director, that even if you've never acted before, I'll be able to make you look fantastic and sound fantastic. So I invite you to come out and audition.
So you're a U of H grad in film?
Yeah, you're a grad.
U of H grad?
In political science, yes.
U of H grad? You're outnumbered.
University St. Thomas, brother.
You're outnumbered. That's okay. No, I'm just curious. When you were taking film at U of H, did you do any Latino themes, if you will, when you were
You know what?
producing?
When I was my first degree was in theater arts, which is theater, not necessarily radio, television, and film. When I was there, yes, I did a Luis Valdez film. Excuse me, a Luis Valdez theater, which is called Los Vendidos, and I remember it was done at Ripley House many years ago. And yes, absolutely, I was so into it. I was so into the different plays. We actually did Roosters as well. Another play that it got turned into a film where Edward James Olmos stars in that project. So yes, I've had my experience in doing those kind of projects, and of course now that we do have this wonderful hidden jewel of a theater, Talento Bilingüe de Houston, we want to transfer what we've done in the institutional arena and actually put it out there in a professional arena like we do have in Talento Bilingüe de Houston, to be able to create this content. Now, one thing that I want to share with you that unfortunately we're still not there yet, where we have a lot of stage plays or screenplays that are written by Latinos with Latino content. So, you know, we still have a long way to go, but I have, to answer your question, I've been blessed to work and direct some of the wonderful Latino projects that have been out there.
That's great. You know, the Latino culture is good to see at Talento Bilingüe de Houston. I mean, there's so much going on in our culture, and to present it in such a way is awesome. And so hats off to you and your wife for doing a great job at Talento Bilingüe.
I tell you, just one thing about this story, you know, all of us have all been to SeaWorld, right? And you notice when you sit right down in front of Shamu, they always call that the splash zone. Well, if you've ever been to Talento Bilingüe, you know that Talento Bilingüe is a very intimate theater. So those first probably 3 or 4 rows of seats, we're going to call it the masa zone. Because if you're sitting there and you're sitting here at this show, you're going to have masa all over you. Just that's just a warning, everybody.
They're gonna throw masa.
No. Oh, and the storyline, believe me, the masa does fly.
You've been warned.
You've been warned, exactly.
It's all women. Do they man bash?
It's a 5 ensemble cast. Oh, of course they do. All women.
Well, you know,
Not just
tamales
Latino
and
women.
gossip.
Yeah, tamales and gossip. My goodness.
So that's what do you think?
I'm getting hungry.
I think you need to take us to get tamales. That's right.
What else is going on at Talento Bilingüe?
Oh, you know what? We have all kinds of things going on here. One of the other producers that we work with, Eduardo Casas, Lopez de Casas, you know, he's going to look at bringing in Humberto Corona, who won the Tengo Talento, Mucho Talento later on this year. He brought, matter of fact, Irma Infante and Humberto for a show just probably about a month or 2 ago.
How'd it go?
Oh, it was fantastic. It was one of the best shows we've had there in a long time. And you know, we're looking at a lot more. You know, and one thing about Talento Bilingüe, we're not just Latino arts. And when Latino, I'm talking the whole gamut, not just Mexicano, but you know, South American, you know, Central American, all the countries involved there. They come do shows there also, and we even do African American shows there. We do a month of French shows with the Edouard Theater.
I'm still waiting for you to do a talent show. I'm ready. I've been practicing.
Hey, let me tell you one thing that my good friend Jumpin' Jess from the Kakukuka fame, you know, he has a heck of an entertainment mind, and he came up to me with a project last week, and we've started running with it. Jess has thought to come and do a tribute to what's her name? I'm sorry, what is it?
Linda
I'm sorry, Linda Ronstadt. Sorry, my mind. I got hit by a car, so I don't always remember all the time. But Linda Ronstadt, who, as most people know, no longer sings because of a disease she has that has killed her voice. So one of the things that she thought to do was that Jess thought to do was we need to do a tribute to Linda Ronstadt, and we've contacted Estorita Ochoa Sanchez, Ria Sanchez Ochoa, to think about to do that, and she loved the idea. So we're looking at probably doing that probably in January sometime. So we think that's going to be a great show.
Well, that wraps up our show. We have run out of time, unfortunately.
We still got a minute, Ben.
We're going to be back in 3 weeks, so we're going to miss next month, next Monday, and the Monday after that we're going to miss. So we'll be back in 3 Mondays from now.
That's right.
August the 11th. So I know you're going to miss us. So we'll see you then. Ciao.
Bye bye.